Gary Willis.
Todd Shernick.
Rita Young.
The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-legal board composed of resident volunteers of the City of Milton. The board is charged with hearing requests for variances from the standards of the zoning ordinance and appeals of administrative determinations. With regard to decisions on primary variances, the board's basis for decision is provided by these four considerations. A, relief if granted would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance. And B, there are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship due to size, shape, or topography, or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions not caused by the variance applicant. And C, relief if granted would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. And D, that the public safety, health, and welfare are secured and that substantial justice is done. At this time, we need to approve the August meeting minutes. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion for approval.
Do we have a second? Any discussion? All in favor of approval, raise your right hand. Let it be known that it passed unanimously. Our first case is V11-011. Angela, will you please present?
Mr. Chair, staff requests that this case be deferred until the next meeting. We are still waiting for necessary information from the applicant.
Do we have a motion to defer?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we defer case V11-011. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of deferring V11-011 till the November 2011 agenda, please raise your right hand. Let it be known that it passed unanimously. Our next case is V11-014, 2825 Mountain Road, James Sutton. Angela, will you please present?
Case number V11-014. The requested variance is to allow a house and garage addition to encroach into the 60-foot front yard setback. The site, 2825 Mountain Road, is an existing single-family residence located on 2.33 acres. The property is located in the Northwest Fulton Overlay and is zoned AG1. The applicant, James Sutton, and his wife have lived in this house since 1957, making one previous addition of an additional story and rear entry drive under the garage. Suttons are both in their 70s and state that it is becoming increasingly harder to climb the 4 steps from the basement to the main floor living area. The front of the existing house is at street level. At its closest, the house is approximately 58 feet from the right-of-way of Mountain Road. The applicant proposes to build a 24 by 17-foot garage addition to the front of the house. This addition will end approximately 39 feet from the right-of-way. Mr. Sutton states that this addition will allow the couple to enter and exit the house after parking their car without walking up and down stairs. Section 64-416 requires a 60-foot front yard setback. Since the existing house already encroaches into the front yard setback, and the proposed addition will further encroach into the front yard setback by approximately 20.7 feet, a variance is required. Design Review Board courtesy review held on October 4th. The DRB offered the following comments. All materials used for the addition shall match the existing house. This includes brick color, siding color, roof material, and color. Additional department comments. Building plan review, the arborist and DOT had no issues. Site plan review, Mr. Jimmy Sanders states the applicant needs to provide a current and accurate survey showing the extent of the property and all existing improvements. The proposed addition should be shown accurately on the survey prior to an issuance of a permit. The approval of the variance is, well, the standards for condition. The approval of the variance are based on the 4 listed conditions, and the applicant responds as follows. The applicant states, with the garage added, the actual distance from the road would be 61 feet. which is actually approximately 39.3 feet from the right-of-way. Looking at the house from the street, the addition will be done in a way as to update the front of the house and still look like it sits well on the lot. The applicant states, there is no other place in the house that we could build a garage and accomplish what we are trying to do. The applicant states, by updating and giving the house a facelift, it could not help but be good for the public and surrounding properties. Public safety should in no way be impacted by this project. Substantial justice would be done by allowing my wife and I to be as comfortable as possible and finish out our lives in the same house as we started out in 54 years ago. Should the board choose to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions. To allow a maximum encroachment of 25 feet into the front yard. All materials used for the addition shall match the existing house, including brick color, siding color, roof material and color, etc. The applicant should provide a current and accurate survey showing the extent of the property and all existing improvements. The proposed addition should be shown accurately on this survey prior to the issuance of a building permit. This concludes the staff presentation.
At this time, are there any questions to the staff from board members? At this time, Reverend Sutton, would you like to present?
Oh, yes. I do.
Go right ahead.
My name's James E. Sutton. I reside at 2825 Mountain Road since 1956 in the same house. And you have all my drawings, do you? And I appreciate the concern you have had for us. And we ask that you approve this, that my wife and I, like the letter said, could finish our days right there on that piece of property. What I'm most proud of today in my closing, and I'm proud I didn't have to go to downtown Fulton County to do this. Thank you very much.
So stay right there just a second. Don't come back. Any questions from the board to the applicant at this time?
You think your marriage can handle a new construction project?
I hope so.
Thank you very much. You can have a seat now. Any public comment? Mr. Sutton, at this time you have an opportunity to make a rebuttal or a closing statement if you so choose to do so. Any questions to the staff now? At this time I'd like to close the public hearing, and the floor is open for a motion. Mr. Recook?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for approval of case V11-014 to allow a house and garage addition to encroach into the 60-foot front yard setback, and the conditions would be to allow a maximum encroachment of 25 feet into the front yard setback of Mountain Road, and all materials used for the addition shall match the existing house, brick color, siding color, roof material, and color of paint. And 3, the applicant shall provide a current and accurate survey showing the extent of the property and all existing improvements. The proposed addition should be shown accurately on this survey prior to the issuance of a building permit.
Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a second. Any discussion?
May I ask a question?
No, sir.
Okay.
Walton, as you considered your motion, did you consider the opportunity perhaps to locate the garage entry along the side instead of facing the street
I think
as a way to mitigate some
Sure.
of the encroachment?
If you look at the side, the only way you could put it so it'd be near the concrete driveway would be putting it towards, and I'm going to help you for just a second here, it would be towards the east side of the house. But by doing so, you're going to get it further away from the driveway, plus possibly encroaching onto the side yard setback. So as far as where it's being shown, I don't necessarily have a problem. This is a fairly large piece of property, and I think from a scale of things, it wouldn't be a problem. I'm sorry I did not mention that in my, I guess I was warned the last time that I'm not supposed to tell my reasons of why I made the motion until after it was seconded, but my reasons basically is relief if granted would not have been the spirit or intent of the ordinance. The applicant stated with the garage addition, the actual distance from the road would be 61 feet or 39.3 feet from the right-of-way. Looking at the house from the street, the addition will be done in a way as to update the front of the house and still look as it sits well on the lot. That there's, secondly, that the extraordinary and exceptional situation involving this piece of property is really not due to the hardship of the lot as much as the shape of the building and where exactly that garage is in relationship to the building. So therefore, where they're planning to put it would seem to make sense. In addition, where they're putting it is almost right on top of the concrete driveway, so the impact, the amount of impervious surface would also be somewhat reduced and not increased if it was moved to another location. The third thing is that the relief granted would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. If you go down Mountain Road, you'll see it's a fairly rural and characteristic on that road. In fact, Phillips is a gravel road, and again, I think this will be in keeping with the neighborhood. And then, as far as the public safety, health, and welfare, and substantial justice done, again, I don't feel like this is going to be a detriment to the community or cause any problems with the community for allowing this variance to be granted.
Mr. Chairman, can you remind me, in the motion, did all three of the
They did.
boards or
Yes, sir.
staff's recommendations, okay?
They are correct. Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second to allow a house and garage addition to encroach into the 60-foot front yard setback with the following conditions. Number one, to allow a maximum encroachment of 25 feet in the front yard setback on Mountain Road. 2, all materials used for the addition shall match the existing house, brick color, siding color, roof material, and paint color. And 3, the applicant shall provide a current and accurate survey showing the extent of the property, all existing improvements. The proposed addition should be shown accurately on the survey prior to issuance of a building permit. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Let it be known that it passed 4-1. Congratulations, sir.
We're happy to have you in the community. We're happy you didn't have to go to Fulton County either.
Keep paying taxes.
Yeah. Good luck to you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Back to this lady up front here. Okay, you all have a good night.
Good night.
V11-015, 1005 Crowbert Way, to allow 2 16-square-feet signs at the entrance of a subdivision zone TR. Angela, will you please present?
Case number V11-015. The requested variance is to allow 2 16-square-foot signs at the entrance of a subdivision zone TR. The site, the Milton Preserve subdivision, is a single-family subdivision located on 8.26 acres in the State Route 9 overlay. It is zoned TR, Townhouse Residential, per RZ 1102. The subdivision consists of, I'm supposed to fill that in. The applicant, Ashton Atlanta Residential LLC, has proposed a 6-foot-tall brick and stone entrance wall across the first 2 lots with a 16-square-foot sign panel to each side of the entrance. The remainder of the frontage along Highway 9 is bordered by a 4-foot-tall wrought iron-style fence. The entrance wall echoes the entrance and fencing of the Crooked Creek subdivision located across Highway 9, although they only have 1 sign. Staff notes that both of the subdivisions adjacent to Milton Preserve have a similar entrance treatment with 2 signs. Even though the subdivision is located in the State Route 9 overlay, the overlay offers no signage allowances for residential developments. Therefore, we look to the zoning category for the signage allowances. Section 64-2303 states that apartment and townhouse zone residential districts are allowed 1 freestanding sign per right-of-way frontage located at the project entrance. The maximum size shall be 32 square feet with a maximum height of 6 feet from grade. Since this subdivision, Zone TR, proposes 2 entrance signs, a variance is required. On October 4th, 2011, the DRB offered the following comments. They stated that the project shouldn't meet all landscaping requirements. Other than that, they had no issue. Additional department comments from building plan reviews, site plan review, arborist, and DOT all had no issues. The approval of a variance for a sign is based on the following condition. Relief only to the sign ordinance may be granted where existing foliage or structures bring about a hardship whereby a sign meeting minimum letter size, square footage, and height requirements cannot be read from an adjoining public road. The applicant responds as follows. Based on several site-limiting factors, 1 sign will cause a hardship by not allowing enough visibility to both northbound and southbound traffic. Due to the 10-foot sign setbacks, no median in the entry road, and the finished floor elevations of the 2 lots at the entry, there is not room for a sign perpendicular to Highway 9 frontage. Should the board choose to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions. The project shall meet all landscaping requirements per the City of Milton arborist. This concludes the staff presentation.
Any questions to staff from the board? Mr. Rico?
Angela, on the sign itself, there is no sign in this district that would allow any kind of signage? Is that what I'm...
The Highway 9 overlay doesn't address subdivisions, so we have to go to the zoning district.
Okay. And since that zoning district says 32 square feet, I guess they're going with 216 square feet. How are you measuring the square footage of that sign? How is that being defined?
It's the square footage of the panel itself, not like the wall or anything, but the panel,
Okay.
which I think is shown on here.
So it's the area encompassed by the stone border, kind of. I guess there's a stone border around it.
There's a wood or MDF
Okay.
panel, oval panel.
Okay. Are there any issues with them not using horse fence versus using wrought iron? Is that another thing that we have to be more or less asking for a variance on?
No. The Highway 9 design requirements prefer horse fencing, but it's not a requirement. So
Okay.
We can't force them to do that.
Okay, but they're saying that's what they're going to be putting in, is the wrought iron fence.
Yes.
So, okay. And if this is truly matching that area across the street on Crooked Creek, is that what they're using as the wrought iron fence?
Yes, they have wrought iron.
Okay,
The adjacent property is as well.
okay. If,
Yeah, I have a question to the city attorney regarding the variance, the ordinance, I should say, the sign ordinance, being limited to granting where there's existing foliage or structures, bringing about a hardship. You know, and as Walt is pointing out, in this case, the zoning ordinance allows for 32 square foot, they're choosing to divide it into 2 signs. Would that, in your estimation, fall within the guidelines of the sign ordinance? It's almost like we have competing ordinances, right? The zoning ordinance and the sign ordinance.
I don't have the sign ordinance in front of me, but most of the other single-family residential, AG1 and the other single-family residentials allow 32 square feet for one sign or 2 16-square-foot signs. And I'm not sure if that's the same. Oh,
That's what it is.
so for AG1, for CUP, NUP, a couple of the others.
It's just not specified for TR as,
I agree.
It just says maximum size should be 32 square feet.
for TR.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? This time, we'd like to ask the applicant to please present, and if you would, state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Mike Busher. I work with Ashland Woods Homes. Our business address is 1455 Old Alabama Road in Roswell, Georgia. With me tonight is our landscape architect, Chris Sears. So, can you hear me okay, first of all? All right. Well, just a recap, first of all, that I thought would be helpful. We're right now currently filing for our final plat. I'm very excited, obviously, to get started at Milton Preserve. This was an unusual piece of real estate in that it was foreclosed upon and owned by a bank. Ultimately brought in as the first, I believe, the first residential rezoning for Milton to consider. And I say that as a backdrop because the TR zoning, which is, if you were looking at it sort of casually, you would think, well, they must be building townhomes. And in fact, we're not. We're building single-family detached residential houses. The square footage that we're going to be building ranges from about 2,800 to 3,200 square feet. But in practice, we were surrounded by TR on both sides. And so it was recommended, though our net density under the TR zoning would have allowed us to build roughly 8 units to the acre on that 8 or 9 acre parcel, so somewhere in the 60 range of units. Our net density actually ended up being 39 total homes. So I share all that with you because it kind of then dovetails into what has happened since then. We've been permitted to build our monument sign, and Chris has some samples that I wanted to just, I don't know if we can share with you, but just a current representation of the sign itself. But both the sign and the fencing, both the sign and the fencing were a result of negotiations with Crooked Creek to say, make this representative of our kind of corridor here. Use color tones and a palette that is similar. Use wrought iron fencing. We'd prefer to see that. And since they were the more vocal of the groups that we heard from, that's why we made the decision to go away from horse fence. But this kind of leads us all to why we asked for the 2 signs. In practice, the signs are already going to be built, or the monument structure is going to be built. What we will be left with is an oval that will either have the ability to say Milton Preserve or not. But structurally, they're going to be there. And especially in this market, we would love north and south travelers to be able to see Milton Preserve shining brightly and being able to earmark it as a destination, no different than when people end up buying there. What will be left in the alternative is to herringbone that oval section with brick. And it seems kind of like a shame because if we are permitted to build 32 square feet by right. We've got that part in. What we don't have, just because it was TR, is this ability, I think, to do the right thing, which is to place 2 signs. Chris did the nice job of just going out and looking at neighboring communities and saying, all right, is the tone and the character for detached or attached to be two signs. And it turns out that with almost every neighborhood in proximity to us, there are two monuments with two clear indications of the name of the community. So it wouldn't be out of character to have two monuments which would have a name of the subdivision. So that may be too long-winded for discussion point, but I wanted to kind of give you the backdrop of why we're here. And again, the hardship for me, we had to sort of obviously use the legalese that were given, but I'll just tell you the real hardship is we want to market this the way that we think we should, which is present it on both sides of the road, allow north and south travelers to find us, and when we're all done and when it's built out, I think it's going to seem a little bit unbalanced to have Milton Preserve on one side and sort of this herringbone oval covered over in brick on the other, simply because we couldn't, by the exact letter of the law of the zoning ordinance, put in the sign. And I don't know if there's, well, and Chris, if you have anything else to add?
I was just, thanks, Mike. I was just going to add, if this helps to pass this around, or if you'd like us to leave it here, to put this together just to compare the three communities, actually the two that are next to adjoining the Milton Preserve subdivision, and then one which is one over. And all three of those have the two 16 square foot or less signs, one on either side of the entrance. So we really felt that it was in the spirit of everything in the surrounding area. Going further down Highway 9 additional, there were plenty of examples to pull from, so we just wanted to bring that and show as well, because the difference, like as you pointed out, the single-family product and single-family zoning allows two 16 square foot. The TR allows one 32 square foot, so we're still within the 32 square foot. So, I don't know if
The season?
The only thing that sign really doesn't represent is that it doesn't show actually both monuments. It just shows one monument. So you might glance at that and say, why is one monument? I did the same thing until I realized really what he's showing is the breakdown of square footage for the two.
Each one of these it says two signs. There's one of these on each side of the road currently as existing.
Any questions to the applicant from the board? Mr. Ricard?
What type of material are you going to make your sign out of?
The sign is a high-density urethane, which is pretty typically what's used these days. It actually lasts longer than the wood signs that we use.
And what,
Brick and stone feature monument.
sure, and what colors are you going to make it?
It's a black background and a muted gold color lettering, so it's not the real bright gold leaf, but more muted. So we feel that it's going to really have good character, not stand out as much as some of the other ones we've seen.
Did you give him the color up of the?
I did give
Yeah,
it a
I
call.
think that'd be helpful.
Just a quick little render.
Yeah, we just did but it's going to be khaki and kind of brown stones again, sort of matching what. The concept here is to make it as much of a corridor feel as possible to Crooked Creek at their request. So you can,
And my other question is, as far as, you trying to match the property kind of across the street, if I'm correct in what I understood you saying, you're also doing some kind of wrought iron fence of some sort across the street to kind of mimic what's there. Will you have a problem with conditioning your project to requiring that you do put fencing along that property?
and I think I may have missed it. Along our property or along,
Right, along your
It already
property.
is. It's already a condition of our zoning. And
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it was definitely a point of discussion because the Milton board had sort of talked about horse fence as kind of the preferred. It wasn't until they heard from the community when they said, "Look, we get you, but if you drive through this corridor, there's not only Crooked Creek, which is a dominant feature, but then there's Wyndham, there's others that have wrought iron.
Right.
We would like you to keep in that spirit, so we've done that."
Okay. Well, that's what I was going to say. If we're going to truly try to match, I was thinking
And it
that
has, we've put stone columns. In fact, it's up today, and you can go and see this already, but the stone columns are already there, kind of placed every 30 feet.
Any other questions to the applicant from the board? Did you have anything additional, sir? Thank you. This time, we'd like to open the floor for public comment. Would either of you like to make a closing statement? Okay. Any questions to the staff from the board? At this time, I'd like to close the public hearing and also open the floor for a motion. Mr. Recook?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for approval to allow two 16-square-foot signs at the entrance of the subdivision zone TR for petition number V11-015. That sign would be as detailed on a plan prepared by Sears Smith and Associates dated July 19th. Sheets 1 and 2, and the sheet title is Sign Detail Plan. And in addition, I would like to condition that approval that the project shall meet all the landscaping requirements for the City of Milton's arborist.
I'll second.
We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I would actually like to raise a point regarding my own question on the sign ordinance. And as I read the sign ordinance further, a consideration for us is whether or not a sign can be read from an adjoining public road, where in fact the way that the fence and entranceway was permitted and designed, a person traveling either north or south would not be able to see the sign from behind them. So I think that this would clearly would fall within our privy to make a determination. And then furthermore, the square footage piece as specified in the sign ordinance allowing of 32 feet, and in this case splitting it between two signs, I also believe meets the guidelines under the sign ordinance.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
I do want to make a statement why I made that approval. Basically, again, since I did not hear that there was I guess in the code to allow a certain signage square footage for this, that the staff went to the zoning ordinance and basically used the sign requirements for subdivision, and I believe that's where they took the interpretation for that definition and used that in this respect. And I felt like that was a good use of understanding what kind of square footage would be allowed for this. I know for signs there's a special caveat on what can allow us to do something like this. And again, I believe it is, as Mr. Church said, that there are some issues with ability to see it from both sides, and also, most importantly, to match the other signage that is in that area, so that it's keeping in conformity with all the other subdivisions, not more, but equal. So that's the reason I made that recommendation for approval.
We have a motion and a second to approve two 16-square-foot signs at the entrance of a subdivision, Zone TR, on sign detail plan by Sears Smith and Associates, dated July 19, 2011, sheets 1 and 2, with the following conditions. The project shall meet all landscape requirements per City of Milton arborist. All in favor, raise your right hand. Let it be known that it passed unanimously. Good luck, guys.
Yeah. You're welcome.
This time we'd like to present V11-016, 13940 Atlanta National Drive, to allow a fence wall in the northwest overlay to be opaque, stucco, and wrought iron with stucco columns adjacent to a public street, to allow a fence/wall in the northwest overlay to exceed 55 inches in height adjacent to a public street, and C, to allow chain link fencing that is visible from the public view. Angela, will you please present?
This is petition number V11016. The three-part variance was stated by the chair. The site, 13940 Atlanta National Drive, is an existing single-family residence in the Estates at National Subdivision. It is located in the Northwest Overlay and is zoned CUP, Community Unit Plan, per Z85-181. The 4.59-acre lot is bordered on the north by approximately 1,110 feet of road frontage along Atlanta National Drive, a private road within the subdivision. The road ends at the intersection of New Providence Road. The lot continues for approximately 586 feet along New Providence Road. The southwest property line borders part of the golf course owned by the Capital City Club for approximately 1,050 feet. The applicant is proposing to surround the entire property with fencing for security reasons. Along New Providence Road, the applicant proposes 395 feet of CMU wall with a stucco finish, 8 feet in height. The fencing continues further back from the right-of-way as a 6-foot-tall wrought iron fence of approximately 190 feet. At the start of Atlanta National Drive, the fencing changes to a 6-foot-tall wrought iron fence with 8.5-foot-tall stucco columns. This treatment will continue for approximately 1,110 feet. The southwest property line is bordered by a 6-foot-tall coated chain link fence for approximately 1,050 feet, which would be replaced with a new vinyl coated chain link fence. Section 64-1142-7A of the Northwest Overlay states that allowed fencing materials shall be 3 or 4 board wooden fencing with wood posts in yards adjacent to a public street. The next section states that fences in yards adjacent to a public street shall not exceed 55 inches from finished grade. Section D states that opaque fences are prohibited in yards adjacent to a public street. The applicant proposes an 8-foot-tall opaque stucco-covered CMU wall along with a 6-foot-tall wrought iron fence along New Providence Road. Therefore, a variance is required for material and height. Although the applicant proposes a wrought iron and stucco column fence along Atlanta National Drive, this is a private road. Therefore, a variance is not required for this treatment. Section 64-11428 states that chain link fences are prohibited from public view. The applicant is proposing chain link fencing along his northwest property line. Parts of this fence may be seen from New Providence Road. Therefore, a variance is required. And staff would just like to note that this is added because once you take down an existing fence, you have to comply with current conditions. On October 4th, 2011, the DRB offered the following comments. A privacy fence standard needs to be developed for the overlay because one does not currently exist. The white color of the stucco wall would be too bright. They prefer a more neutral color. Break up the wall with groupings of mixed hardwoods and evergreens, spaced a minimum of 20 feet, or as recommended by the arborist. Heights of planting should vary. Planting plan to be approved by the city arborist. Set the wall back far enough from the road to allow for these plantings. Why replace the chain link with solid wrought iron? We prefer wrought iron with columns. The staff held a focus meeting on October 3rd at which the following comments were provided. Building plan review. Due to the addition of a pool, all 3 gates must be self-closing. Site plan review, no issues. Arborist. There are no other 8-foot-tall stucco privacy walls along New Providence Road. Privacy may be achieved through the correct plantings. DOT. The wall and fence must be a minimum of 3 feet off the right-of-way. Standards for consideration. The approval is based on 4 standards for consideration, and the applicant responds as follows. This variance would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance because the fence we are proposing is of very high-quality construction and there are similar structures in the area. In addition, as the property is triangular in shape, it would create an unnecessary hardship if I were unable to construct the fenced wall in the manner as drawn, as the views from the main street would be able to see directly into my house without this fenced wall as proposed. As this fenced wall is to be constructed at a high level of finish, it would not cause any detriment to the public good of surrounding properties. In fact, it will enhance the area. Finally, substantial justice would be done by allowing this variance and the public safety, health, and welfare are secured. As a person who is well known, my privacy is important to me, and I believe that this fence wall would benefit my neighbors as well as it would limit the visitors' visual access to my property, which would reduce traffic and onlookers from congregating at or near my property. Should the board choose to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions. All fencing along New Providence Road shall be wrought iron with stacked stone columns to match the fencing along Atlanta National Drive. This fencing shall be supplemented by mixed plantings of evergreens and hardwoods to provide screening. Fencing should be set back far enough to allow for plantings. The planting plan to be approved by City of Milton arborist. Or, if the stucco wall is allowed, the color should be in the beige tones. If the stucco wall is allowed, mixed groupings of evergreen and hardwood trees shall be planted every 20 feet. The fencing should be set back far enough to allow for plantings. Planting plan to be approved by the City of Arborists. This concludes the staff presentation.
Any questions to staff from the board? Mr. Ricker?
My question under the requested variance B, when you say that's a public street, it's referring to, I believe, Atlanta National Drive. Is that truly a public street?
I think I said Atlanta National Drive was a private street.
So is the condition for B, is that only for what location then?
55 inches in height for New Providence. Well, the variance itself would be for New Providence.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with what occurs along, I just want to make sure what these conditions cover. If it's covering the fence and wall along New Providence,
I don't care.
and that's it, is that correct? Is this all pertaining to New Providence?
New Providence and then the chain link fencing along the back of the property.
Okay, so the one that's adjoining the AG1 property.
Right.
That's on the, what do we call it, southeast or whatever. So, okay, so I need to understand that. Okay, fine. All right, second, under the conditions, it talks about the planting, and I think it makes reference also to a planting plan for around the fencing. And I just want to make sure, again, I'm understanding where this is referring to. So I know the stucco walls being planted along New Providence, and there's fence along New Providence, but it's really back off the right-of-way a good distance. It's not on the right-of-way. So you're saying even though it's way off the right-of-way, this fence, it still would have to have plantings along that area?
The stucco wall?
Well, no, I understand the stucco wall, but the fence that's somewhat parallel to New Providence.
That's the stucco
That's the
wall.
blue. That's the blue. Excuse me, pink color on the map.
Okay, so the pink is currently chain link and they want to replace.
No,
They're
it's wrought
asking.
iron.
That's right, yeah.
No, it's currently chain link, but
Okay,
they're asking to replace it with
Oh, okay.
wrought iron.
wrought
I
iron.
guess.
But are you saying that you want planting in front of that wrought iron fence as well? That's what I'm trying to understand. A very high condition.
Yes. Well, and then that's also to benefit the applicant.
Well, can we see yours? Because we don't have the pink.
We don't have that.
Oh,
You don't have one that's
We
colored?
thought you were
We,
colorblind.
No, we don't.
Oh.
Yeah, ours isn't pink.
PDF.
Okay, so it's that.
Sorry.
So that's wrought iron picket fence.
Here's the
Right.
one.
Okay. We got
We're
it.
good. We're up to speed.
We're good.
We're
We
good.
got it. Rita,
So-
did you get that?
I've got it, yes.
So what I was
Okay.
trying to do is just make sure I understand what conditions we're going for what area. Okay, so, and then as far as the color goes, a beige tone,
Well, can you recap what, since
Sure,
we're
sure.
following you? the
okay. If
Question
you look at the
regarding
last
plantings.
condition, it says, if a stucco wall is allowed, mixed groupings of evergreen hardwood wood shall be planted every 20 foot. Fencing shall be set back far enough to allow for planting. Planting plan to be approved by city arborist. So this is what I was trying to understand. The fence that this is referring to, is that the pink fence or pink line showing the fence along New Providence? Or is that referencing this,
The blue.
no, the blue's the wall. Or is the fencing referring to the
Lime green.
lime green one along AG1?
I believe by fence, we mean fence/wall. So it's both the the stucco wall shown in blue, and then the wrought iron shown in pink.
Okay,
The
See, 'cause it
DRB
says-
specifically wanted the plantings in front of the stucco wall.
I understand. But then the next sentence it says fencing. So fencing to me means it could be any of these fences. So that's where I was trying to clarify which fence. And now I understand it's the fencing along, that would be,
Along New Providence.
All of the fencing along New
yeah.
Providence, fencing/wall
Yeah,
along New Providence.
I understand. And then,
And as far as the setback, as it's shown in this plan, like the wall is right along the property line. So I don't know if that's really where they plan on putting it or what, but
it looks like it's right on the 10-foot easement.
it's, well, I mean, it's pretty close to the property. I'd have to get.
Yeah, it's close to the property line and the 10-foot easement.
It's
on the
in
10-foot
the
easement,
10-foot,
yeah.
no access easement.
okay. One more question I've got. All right, I understand condition 1, which I would just say bullet number 1. I'll say that's 1. But condition 2, it's saying condition 2, or I would say either one's going to be a 2A and one's going to be a 2B.
Right, there, I guess, two sets. The first
Correct.
two are if you decide, well, put it this way, the second two are if you decide to go with the stucco wall. The first two are if you decide to go with the wrought iron and columns.
Okay, so,
So it's either these two or those two.
Yes. It's either A or B,
Yeah.
or C, which is,
Yeah, you either pick these or you pick these.
okay. So it'd be 1A and 2A, and then 2B and, 1B and 2B.
Got it. There you go.
That's what you're referring to. Okay, I didn't understand.
So 1A, 1B, 2A.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so we're either doing this or this or this.
One
You
of
can't
each.
take one of
Okay,
these and put it
okay.
with one of these.
Okay, so,
or if we didn't have anything, and now we see.
Does that make sense?
but, okay, the way I look at it is 1B and 2B basically describes exactly what they've got shown. 1A would mean that they would only be allowed to put fencing, not a wall. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
These
I
two
just
up here are
want
fencing, these two down here are walls.
walls and fence.
Can we make it real simple, just name it 1,
Yeah.
2, 3, and 4?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's all do this. 1, 2,
That's fine.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Now restate your point.
Okay. So what I understand is 1A, 1 and 2 are basically defining it where there would only be a fence along New Providence Road.
Correct.
3 and 4 would be the wall and fence as they've got shown on this site plan.
Correct.
Yes,
Okay,
got
you
it.
got it. Any other questions for staff? This time we'd like the applicant to please come forward and present. If you would state your name and address, please.
My name's Bob Kipp. My address is 13915 Atlanta National Drive. I live across the street from the property, and I am the 7th superintendent on this project. The project's been going on for 3 years now, and I kind of took it over since I have a vested interest because I live across the street. We have a unique situation. In the little reading there, it said that the person making the application is a noted person. Well, not too many people have heard of Alioune Thiam, but his name is Akon, and he is he's the leader of the hip hop movement. Very well known, not only locally and nationally, but internationally, and he has quite a following. And the real reason that we're here isn't for looks of this wall or whatever. It's really a security issue. If you go down Providence Road now, you can, I'm sure we've all been down there, you've seen this house. It's been under construction for so long. And this last phase, since I've been on board, is they're making a commitment to finish this project because it's been in this state of disrepair for so long. And no one, the owner really didn't realize once we did our grading and the heights of the building and everything, what that would mean to the view from the street. And now that we're pretty much along and we're in the final phases of framing and doing our landscaping, it's apparent that anyone driving down Providence Road can look right in and see the activities that are going on. The applicant plans to use this as his primary residence, and he has 5 children that'll play in the backyard and all that kind of thing, and privacy and security are paramount for him because of his celebrity status. So what we're trying to do is figure out a way to get the 8-foot stucco wall in there. Not so important down Atlanta National Drive. And the chain link fence in the back is already there that separates capital cities from his property. So the real issue here is to try to separate the public from the private part right there. And we came up with this game plan to fulfill the needs of what we need, and I think that that's what we're proposing. There's some confusion there. After you go to 510 feet with the stucco wall, we're proposing replacing the chain link fence that's there with a new chain link fence. So that chain link fence already runs there. The original plan was to run the stucco wall all the way down Providence Road to the entrance monument for the subdivision. But then since there's a bunch of trees there, we wanted to keep the natural feel for the entrance to the subdivision. So we felt if we only ran it 510 feet and connected to the existing chain link fence, that we could minimize any impact on the entrance and what it looks like going into Atlanta National. So that's why we have the chain link fence behind the woods, basically, and you really can't see it from the road. And then it comes out on Atlanta National Drive and then goes to the wrought iron and the stucco.
Any questions to the applicant from the board? Yes, sir.
I'm looking at my drawing, and I guess I'm confused. At the point where your wall ends, at this blue point here,
Right. Okay.
and then it goes to this pink color. I'll show my other. You're saying this pink one is actually going to be chain link, not wrought iron?
That's correct. It's going to be chain link, and
Okay.
it's already there.
But you're taking it down.
Well,
Not wrought iron.
we're going to fix it.
So if you're going to take it down, why wouldn't you put wrought iron all the way to make it look the same?
Because it runs in the woods and nobody sees it. That's all wooded area.
That's a wooded area. Oh.
It's kind of running through those forests.
Okay, so what
How
we...
tall is this chain link fence going to be?
6 foot, I think.
You're gonna have to ask him. I'm gonna ask him how that fits into his security plan.
Yeah, it looks 6 foot.
Really, the pink should be green
You should do more here.
in the front there.
Excuse me?
Okay.
Okay. That section of fence should be the line green, not pink?
Correct.
but the color of the or the type of fence being used along Old National or Atlanta National, what color should that be then? Because I'm confused that, that something's changing. So I want to make sure that whatever we're changing, I want to make sure you tell me everything.
Okay.
Go through it again. Describe it.
Okay, down Atlanta National Drive, that would be B.
That would be C,
No, B.
B. Okay.
B?
So it's going to have columns.
Columns
And the rod iron fence.
Okay. All right.
which would be similar to Providence across the street. That's
Okay.
the idea.
Okay.
Okay? Then, if you go to the fence along the back, that's chain link, and it's already existing, and it's in bad shape, and we basically, be fixing it, and it's already there. So,
Mr. Kip, does not some of the stucco wall wrap along that AG1 property? On my plan, it shows that it looks like a little bit of the stucco wall comes around that corner and wraps it, and then also the fence that's along Atlanta National Drive slightly goes, to the. I guess there's an easement there, a gas line where you've got a fence. So it's showing the wrought iron there, and then it's going up the property line slightly.
yeah,
Looks
the
like
reason,
for two joints or something, or two column lengths.
yeah, the reason we did that is because there's an easement right there, and
Sure,
in
sure.
the current, there's gates for them
Sure.
to come in there. So on the one on the lower part of the property, that's the reason that one's there and looks like that. The one at the top, if we go on after the fence, we go on a 45 there because there's an AT&T connection box right there, a bunch of them. So we didn't want to impede into that. And then it starts to go up the hill right there. So we thought that it would look good and give the sense of more privacy and security coming back like 10 feet along the back property line to the Capital Cities Club.
Okay. One of the other comments the staff made is that all these gates have to have automatic closers on those gates because of the swimming pool. And just out of curiosity, are you going to be? I mean, I'm sure on the front gates you're going to have automatic closers, but I guess these gates that you have for the gas company, they're going to have to close somewhat automatically. That seems like an expensive proposition.
It is, and that wasn't our intent. The staff wants the gates to close automatically because of the swimming pool, but right now, it's developing right now, but that is planned to be a closed-in area around the swimming pool with alarms on the doors that go out into the fenced area so that we can abide by all the rules.
Right, but that's part of the problem is under the city's code, you've got to have the pool area fenced.
Which right now, I don't have any proof of this, but
Okay.
that's part of our plan now. We haven't hired a landscape architect for the back, and we're still developing that.
Okay, but that's part of the problem is that I guess you're coming to see us for a fence, and they're telling us one of the things they want is an automatic closer. I feel like I'm kind of put in the middle here. I guess I have to go back to the staff later and ask that question. Would we have to ask for a closer on these two gates for the gas company?
Well, we can talk about that later. We can condition that.
Well, I think that's what I'm hearing is that they really don't want a condition on that.
Well, essentially, my point would be is we could condition that they would have to provide automatic closers unless they provide a secure perimeter for the pool.
Right.
So that would address that.
Okay.
So they'd have to provide automatic closures unless they provide a secure perimeter for the pool.
Okay. Where are there other 8-foot high stucco walls in this area?
At my house across the street, I have one coming off my garage. It's the privacy.
But is it along the perimeter of the property?
No, it's not. It's in.
Okay.
That was one area. Well, I have some pictures. I forget where I took all the pictures from.
Well, it's an important time to bring them.
Yeah, well,
You have them?
I submitted them.
Okay.
And now that I'm looking at the pictures, and some of these other entrance monuments, as well as the one to Atlanta National, it's not a stucco wall, but it's a privacy wall that comes off the entrance monument. Matter of fact, it's in front of my house. That's 8 foot tall, except that one is clad with fieldstone.
Any other
If you go down
questions
to
from
the Gates Mill, that's the same type of situation down there. And that's
Is there any reason to go with stucco and not something else? Maybe something that looks stucco and has a little bit of stone mixed in it, or?
Well, no. Actually, the reason that we want to do stucco is because the house is going to be stucco.
Okay.
And we kind of want it match, and we wanted it white originally, but we're a beige color is fine with us. And as far as the quality of this, it'd be a stucco wall with cast caps on top with the pilasters.
Are you going to paint it with the graffiti-less paint
Well,
so you don't get tagged?
he'd be the person to get tagged, let me tell you.
I know, that's what I'm thinking.
But it was just plain on colored stucco.
Right, but what I'm saying, there's a special paint you can buy. I'm just being helpful here.
Yeah.
That you can actually
Don't worry
stucco.
about that. Any other questions for the applicant?
I do have one. So you mentioned security as being one of the considerations to securing this perimeter here, yet along, I understand it's a wooded area, but along the front entrance, you're looking at maintaining a chain link fence, which doesn't, to me, seem to be very, in keeping with security. So would you have an issue, should we extend the wrought iron picket fence with columns to connect with the stucco wall in place of the chain link fence?
I wouldn't, but I think that would be a detriment to the area because we'd have to dig footers for that. And like I said, it goes inside all the trees that we're trying to preserve. And that would be the issue there. We'd certainly, to get this to pass, we'd do that. But we'd be killing some of these trees.
What if it was just fence? What if it was just wrought iron fence? That wouldn't necessarily kill them
No, we could.
Okay.
if it didn't have the columns.
Right.
Okay. And then my last question is around this stucco wall that running in parallel to New Providence. One of the staff's recommendations or design review board recommendations was to go with the wrought iron and column detail with vegetation to provide screening. Can you elaborate on why that wouldn't meet your client's needs?
Yeah. Well, it depends on how high we could make the wrought iron. In the screenings, it says every 20 foot at a minimum. Well, to get what we're looking for, we'd have to vegetate the whole front, and it'd be a completely different deal than and be easier to penetrate. We're thinking than an 8 foot high wall, and we're not opposed to anything. We're just trying to make this work. But the planting idea, every 20 foot in front of the stucco wall, we would prefer that if that would kind of achieve what you're looking for there. But it's a real security issue that a solid wall would give over a wrought iron fence with plantings.
It sounds like it's really more of, in that case, of privacy versus security.
It's both. That's the real issue here. And they have that wrought iron fence around the White House, and people are always jumping over that.
Mr. Kipp, let me see if I understand something. So your concern is if you did have to put the planting in front of the wall, that just gives another means of somebody shimming up on the tree or using leverage to get up the tree to get over the wall.
Well, if I heard right at the last meeting, they wanted varying heights, and I kind of got the feeling that it was like a lower type of planting. But we'd be willing to put high plants there, whatever it takes.
But it says evergreen and hardwoods, so to me, evergreens could be a big shrub or a big tree, and hardwoods would be a tree as well. So, I mean, the question becomes, they could be any size. I mean, you're opening up the door for anybody who's the arborist.
Which means so wrought iron with vegetation on the interior would provide better security
Possibly.
than a tree on the exterior.
Possibly. From a visibility standpoint, having a tree on the inside versus the outside. And from a security standpoint. But I think the staff's looking at the aesthetics. How ugly is a plain beige wall going down the street?
Right.
I think that's what they're really looking at, is how do you take that away? And maybe the real answer is it's not trees or shrubs. Maybe it's ivy that climbs the wall, that eventually,
That'd be.
I think that's one of the issues I'm hearing. I'm just trying to understand it. Maybe I'll have to ask staff later, but I think that may be the issue, is how do we make something look pretty?
Ivy, we'd love that.
That or wisteria or something that climbs it and, attaches to it. You don't care.
Like I said, the real issue here is we don't really care about the Providence side road from the inside standpoint.
Sure.
And the only reason we want it is for privacy and security. And I love the Ivy idea. I think they would too.
Mr. Kipp, I know that we're talking about security and privacy, and in the applicant statement, they talk about, or you talk about, it would reduce traffic and onlookers. Has that been an ongoing problem? Have you all had complaints from others that there's traffic and onlookers near the property?
Well, during construction there is.
Okay.
People are driving by. Remember, it's been going on for 3 years, and word's gotten out, and people stop and they slow down in the front and they look now, and there's nothing to see. It creates quite a deal when he does show up, because he walks around and he's got like an orange suit on most of the time, and so you can pick him out of a crowd, and people see that going by.
So you have your swimming pool in that rear area, so that's kind of what that opaque wall is really doing, is shielding you from the street.
Well, actually, not only the swimming pool, the master suite. It's a 2-story master suite that actually faces Providence Road, and has a balcony in there, and that looks straight out over the pool into the street. And so if you're in there at night in bed, somebody driving down the street can go over there and look right in.
Was he the original purchaser of this piece of property?
No, what do you mean the original purchaser?
Did he start this project?
Did he start this project?
Yes.
And this has been going on for over 3 years.
Yes. What happened was, he had a representative purchase the piece of property for him, and he never really saw it, and so the representative bought it because he's kind of a big wheel kind of guy. And then after it was purchased, they were going to renovate it, and in the course of renovation, they ran into a lot of thieves, scallywags, and crooks, and it's been a real nightmare, this whole thing. And I know that because I live across the street, and I've been watching this thing happen. And so it's been a real nightmare for this guy. And I'm thinking that if he would have bought it, he probably wouldn't have purchased this particular house. Because now what's happening is it's going to be the value of this thing, what it's costing, is going to be sky high compared to the neighborhood. But the good news is that he's committed to finishing it and not walking away. So that's part of the reason why I'm here, because he's making a real commitment to finish this project and move his family there and conduct his business affairs at a house he has in Sandy Springs.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Okay.
This time, we'd like to open the floor for public comment, if there's any. Seeing none, sir, do you need to make a closing statement?
No, I'm good.
Okay. At this time, any questions from the board to the staff? Yes, sir.
Angela, the landscape request by the Design Review Board, was the purpose of that was more for kind of breaking up and creating some greenery along that section of road versus just having this barren wall? Because, I mean, when I look at the pictures here for what's in front of Land National and some of these, I mean, they kind of, you know, it looks like it's pretty barren as far as trees are concerned, except for what looks like it's been growing there naturally. Seems like the wall's pretty predominant, and it looks like they do most of their planting behind this fence. I guess I'm referring to this page back here. Everybody like to look. I mean, I think it's what, like you said, Ms. Chernick, it looks like the landscape material is more behind the wall or fence than in front of it to give it some more scale. Now, in this case, of one of the other celebrities, it looks like they do have, and I guess that's the mayor's house, so that's why you call him a celebrity.
No.
But no, I'm kidding. That it does show some trees in front of that fence. But on the other one, the other celebrity I know, it's one of the Backstreet Boys. Is that correct? His fence and such. That's the one on Birmingham Highway Road. Excuse me, Freemanville Road.
Yeah, this is it here.
No, it's right here.
Yeah, this is.
Oh, same thing. Okay. So again, there's not much there on the fence, and but I'm just trying to understand why they were so insistent on the planting in front of the wall. I guess that's what and I know I'm asking you to interpret something that you can't really tell me why, but I guess if you can take a wing at it. Maybe you weren't even at the meeting, but.
I'm always at the meeting. The DRB specifically wanted to break up the expanse of the stucco wall as it's seen from the road from New Providence. The pictures that you have of the other walls, they're not necessarily privacy walls, they're entrance monument sign walls.
Right.
So of course you wouldn't want to put trees in front of those. But
Do you think would vines or you know, like wisteria or ivy or something like that, would that kind of meet the same intent? Or, I mean, I think what you're looking for is some kind of screening over, and you said 20 foot. To me, every 20 foot, if I remember correctly, I'm sorry, I don't have it memorized, but
I think she went with 20 feet because that was about the location that was about the distance of the columns on the other part.
Sure.
Just, you know, what she picked. I think
But I'm thinking you're
she
looking
went
like
with
50%
trees
of the
and
wall.
trees and shrubs because that's more of what, you know, is there naturally.
But what I'm, I guess my problem is when you say 20 foot, plantings every 20 foot, to me.
Groupings of plantings every 20 feet.
Yeah, I'm thinking that maybe the better definition is plantings, you know, 50% of the wall, you know, having 50% of the wall screened. I mean, so that it's somewhat systematic. In other words, 20 feet would mean there's a tree here, and then another one every 20 foot, another tree,
Right.
another.
Or groupings of trees.
Right, or groupings of trees. I think what they're trying to do is get some kind of screening involved, and I guess that's what I'm
Or
trying
to break it up. I mean, you obviously can't take a lot to screen a wall like that, but to at least
Especially
break it
8
up.
foot tall. I think that's the issue, is that it's, if you're looking at just a normal man like Doc here, who's at 7 foot, you add another foot on top of him, and, you know, it's a pretty tall thing.
Yeah, it's not going to go away. Just, you have to kind of help it blend in with the surroundings, with what's already there.
Any other questions for staff from the board? At this time, I'd like to close the public hearing, and the floor is open for a motion. And whoever makes one.
Can I ask one more question?
Oh, sure, go right ahead.
The automatic gate closers, I meant to ask about that.
Sure.
If we didn't make that a motion, I mean, is that not something that you require anyway?
It is.
So if I didn't mention it at all, that's going to be something you've got to deal with. And and I don't want to mix up this thing. I don't want to get too much into this person's business, because I feel like staff's more than competent to do this. So I know you did put in your condition, but it was mentioned earlier in the staff's report. So,
Yeah, it's part of the pool code, so we have to do that
okay.
anyway.
And how best to describe this drawing? What is, I mean, really, I mean, is this something that you have that we can describe, or
Yeah, I mean, what does it say?
if we make reference to V11-00016,
Site plan,
site plan submittal?
and then we've got the
AS 101.
top.
Okay. Okay.
And then I just wanted to point out the pink. I don't know if you noticed it. I referred to it as the wrought iron because if you get a magnifying glass and refer to 17, which in the box up upper left, which is what the plan directs you to, it says remove existing chain link fence and provide wrought iron picket fence. So, so that's where that came from.
I see, says the blind man.
I think it all ought to be wrought iron.
I agree.
Yeah,
So,
That needs to be wrought iron too.
I agree, but not here. I don't care if it's
Oh, I
true.
don't care. Yeah, that doesn't bother me.
But do you care?
That's already is wrought iron.
That's the stucco.
Oh, no, that's okay. It's stuck on wrought iron. I think I look good.
You don't care if it's a wall or not, do you?
I'd like it to be a wall. Wall would sure look better.
Okay.
Don't you
All
think
right.
it look better? What do you think would look better?
The mix.
You like to run a picket fence detail?
One other thing we did not ask, what is the type of gate that they're using for the front entrance? Is it also going to be wrought iron? My assumption it would be, but
I mean, you know,
do we need to make any reference to that, or is that something we need to define?
Everybody's trying to
We're
protect
not
the guy's
even,
privacy.
the variance doesn't even, include the fencing along Atlanta National Drive, so pretty much do whatever.
Okay. Okay. Okay, Chief.
I can't make one.
I know.
But you want this
I'd like to make a
you want this
motion.
6 foot or 8 foot?
8 foot.
Okay.
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion involving V11-016, referencing a request to allow a fence/wall in the northwest overlay to be opaque stucco and wrought iron with stucco columns adjacent to New Providence Road. And then secondly, to allow a fence/wall in the northwest overlay to exceed 55 inches in height adjacent to New Providence Road. And then C, to allow a chain link fence that is visible from the public view along the southwest property adjoining Atlanta National. Is that correct?
Just say southwest property.
Southwest property.
I refer to it as the Capital City Club.
Excuse me?
I
Capital
refer
City Club.
to it as the Capital City Club.
Along Capital City Club
Capital City Club.
property.
Could you repeat the first part for me?
Yes, ma'am. To allow a chain link fence that is visible from public view.
Oh, I'm sorry, the very first one.
Okay. To allow a fence/wall in the northwest overlay to be opaque stucco and wrought iron with stucco columns adjacent to a public street to New Providence Road. And then B, to allow a fence/wall in the northwest overlay to exceed 55 inches in height adjacent to New Providence Road. And then lastly, to allow a chain link fence that's visible from public view along the southeast property, or Capital City Club property. And my conditions would be that the If the stucco wall would be colored, be a beige color. The stucco wall is allowed. A mixed grouping of evergreens and hardwood shall be planted every 20 feet, or other
Arborist,
what?
per the arborist.
Per the arborist. Fencing shall be set back far enough to allow for planting. A planting plan shall be approved by the city arborist
Along New Providence.
along New Providence. But this is only along New Providence. So let me repeat that. If a stucco wall is allowed, the color shall be beige in tone. If a stucco wall is allowed, the mixed grouping of evergreens and hardwood shall be planted every 20 feet along New Providence Road. And the fencing shall be set back far enough to allow for planting plan to be approved by the arborist along New Providence Road. So that way everybody knows that this is only pertaining to the New Providence Road section.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion.
Oh,
Can you clarify on,
yeah, there's one other thing. I meant to make reference to the site plan. This shall all be referenced to the site plan as presented by PFVS Architecture, Planning and Interiors. Revised date, it looks like 11/6, and I'll be 09, it looks like.
there's a date on the bottom right.
It's 11/5/09.
11/5/09.
Where are you seeing the bottom? Oh, excuse me, 11/9/09. And
No, it's 5. Where do you see that?
11/5/09. I'm sorry, and there's another one down here. Well, we're giving the latest revision date. There's another date that says it was done on September 3rd, 2010. So there's another one down here at the very bottom. And it's sheet AS-101. And this is the sheet that was presented to the staff for this case. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Okay, can you clarify in your motion whether or not you specified a wrought iron fence in section 17?
We should have.
Again, what we did is, based on this site plan, it says, item number 17 says, again, remove existing chain link fence and provide a wrought iron fence, refer to section C. So I didn't bother changing that always was under my intention to leave it as shown on the site plan. So on the site plan, it does show that section that I'm showing in the color pink to be a wrought iron fence. It would not have columns except for on each end, but there would be wrought iron fence there.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I understand your logic.
No problem.
Any other discussion? Yes, ma'am.
So sorry.
Clarified in the blue, you're proposing to approve the wall?
That's correct. It's doing, basically conditions 3 and 4 is what we're asking for.
So the original variance was in 3 parts, A, B, C. Are we looking to approve A, B, and C?
Yes. That would be to allow those 3 variances. So we're allowing the wall and wrought iron along New Providence, and we're allowing it to exceed 55 inches in height, again along New Providence for both of those. And then lastly, to allow the chain link fence that's visible from public view along that southeast property where they're saying there's an existing fence now, that would still stay, and that's that by the Capital City Club. So that's what's going on. The fence that's along Atlanta National Drive is really not involved because that's on a private street, so we're not impacted. It does look like on the plan they are wrapping some of this wrought iron fence going along the Capital City Club at the, I guess you'd say 20 feet or so. It shows where the item number 13 is along that area. And then also they're showing the wall wrapping slightly around that corner as well. So
I have a question for staff regarding the motion. It was indicated that they provide for landscape spacing, but we didn't specify any specific distance. Is that clear enough for staff's purposes, interpretation?
You just say 20 feet.
Well, it's a 20 feet spacing, and then the wall to be set back
Right.
enough to accommodate that landscape plan. We don't specify how far back the wall should be
Yeah.
set back.
Yeah, they can work that out with the arborist.
With the arborist? Okay.
so I just,
That's fine, I just want to make sure that
yeah, I know.
you're all right.
Thank you.
Any other questions to staff? Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second to approve V11-016 to allow a fence/wall in the northwest overlay to be opaque, stucco, and wrought iron with stucco columns adjacent to New Providence Road. And B, to allow a fence/wall in the northwest overlay to exceed 55 inches in height adjacent to New Providence Road. And C, to allow chain link fencing that is visible from the public view along the southeast property, also known as the Capital City Club property, with the following conditions. The stucco wall color should be in beige tones, and there should be mixed groupings of evergreens and hardwood, and they should be planted every 20 feet per the arborist. Fencing should be set back far enough to allow for plantings. Planting plan to be approved by the city arborist for the section along New Providence Road. Also in accordance with the site plan of PFVS dated 9/3/2010, sheets AS-101. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Let it know that it passed unanimously. Good luck.
Thank you
sir.
for being a resident of Milton. Well, it won't be one for long, let's hope, with you on the job. Well, good luck to you.
Thank you.
Hope things go well.
Let me see, this is a proposed transport, that's part of the variance.
So they'll be back.
They'll be back. They always do that. At this time, we'd like to present V11-017 to reduce parking for restaurants from 62 to 50 spaces. Angela, will you please present?
Case number V11-017, variance is stated to request to reduce parking for a restaurant from 62 to 50 spaces. The site, 13700 Highway 9, is a commercial complex zone C1 per Z9944, U9801, and U9926. The complex consists of a 5,200 square foot retail building in the front and a series of 1- and 2-story self-storage buildings in the rear. The applicant, the owner of Q Barbecue, is expanding his business into the adjacent 1,500 square foot space. This will increase the number of required parking spaces by 12. The retail space currently has 50 parking spaces. Section 641410 requires 62 spaces for the subject building. Because of this requirement, a variance is required. Staff notes Penhodge Properties, the property owner, has signed a letter of agreement with Burton and Associates, the adjacent property owner, to use the parking lot next door 7 days a week for overflow parking. On October 4th, the DRB offered the following comments. Previously removed landscape trees shall be replaced prior to the issuance of certificate of occupancy. The staff held a focus meeting on October 3rd. Building plan review, site plan review, and DOT had no issues. And the arborist just stated that the landscape trees will need to be replanted. The approval of the variance is based on the four stated listed considerations. The applicant responds as follows. The requirement of the 12 additional parking spaces poses quite an economic and logistical hardship on the property owner and tenant, as additional parking is not possible due to size, site, orientation, and adjacent properties right away. Should the board choose to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions. Plant the 7 required landscape trees for the City of Milton tree ordinance. Consult with the city arborist, and staff wanted to change the wording of the second condition. And basically that was, the variance is, let me do this. The applicant needs to maintain an agreement for overflow parking with the adjacent property. So basically the variance is good as long as they have this agreement.
The comment that I provided was to reword it to make sure that, to make the condition one that required them to have an agreement to provide for overflow parking. Thus, if they didn't have it, it would be an ordinance violation or some sort of rescission of the variance itself.
So can you please state what language you would?
I believe as suggested, it would be the applicant shall maintain an agreement for a parking agreement for overflow parking amount of 12 spaces.
So applicant shall,
Maintain an agreement for overflow parking.
It should reference the 12 additional spaces.
12 additional spaces, additional parking spaces.
If that's the way of the.
And should that also be noted as being adjacent to this property?
I guess that's up to the board itself.
Okay.
And with that, that concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you. Any questions to the staff from the board? Yes, sir.
I've counted the number of spaces, and I've also asked Nancy to help me, because at this hour, I'm now going on my 14th hour. I'm only coming up with 49 spaces, not 50.
The one is, there's one space, I'll find it again, I did the same thing. There is one space set, if you look above the subject retail building, and travel straight up, there's one extra spot, I believe.
I don't see it.
Okay. And that's what I don't understand. I mean, I would almost be counting spaces all the way across. I know there's a drive-in space. Okay, there it is. There's a drive-in laundry. So that's what that room is for. So is the laundry open after hours? I guess I need to ask that of the applicant. So, okay. Let's see what he says right there. Okay.
Any other questions to the staff from the board?
Are any of these spaces supposedly to be handicapped?
The 12 or the overflow spaces? Or?
Right. Are any of these overflow spaces have to be handicapped, or are any of the do they have enough handicapped in front of the property now or behind the property to meet their obligations so they don't need? I mean, I would think if you're going to be have a handicap situation, you would prefer to have them closer to the building.
That would technically be a question for the fire marshal.
Okay.
I haven't heard that that's an issue.
Okay.
Any other questions to staff from the board? At this time, we'd like the applicant to please come and present. If you would state your name and address, we would appreciate it.
Hey everybody, I'm Paul Doster, 1265 Sherry Drive, Alpharetta 30009.
I'm Taylor Hadaway, this is Subject Partners.
This is Taylor. We're looking to go through the wall to the space next door because we do, well, the number one reason is for overflow nights and weekends mostly. We don't plan on opening this side during the day because it's going to require additional staff, and we don't necessarily want to congest the front parking lot any more than it is now with the nail salon next door. The other two are pretty much non-parking entities. Corky Nesbitt next door, he has at most one car at a time in there for a golf lesson, and that's probably 2 or 3 times a week, so that's not a major deal there. And Vigil down at the other end is a drive-through, so rarely does anybody park for him at all. We would like to use the space next door primarily for parties like that, larger parties, groups of 12, 14. We get these families coming in, and we get some of the tennis ladies from Crooked Creek that want to come down and do their thing with 15, 20 people. And in that small space that we have down there, it's difficult to pull tables together. And a lot of these people obviously would like to sit together, so we would like to accommodate that as best we can. Again, not necessarily during a lunch. We would like to do it when the other guys are pretty much out of there. We also lease a space behind at your extra attic. We've got a 10 by 10 space back there for storage, for catering, things, tables, chairs, food warmers, things like that, which we pay $100 a month for. Well, we'd like to get rid of that and bring all that stuff up and store it in the back of this secondary space, if you will. Also, our office, I don't know if any of you have ever been in there, but our office is a little cubby in the hall, and with 3 or 4 people having to work in there day in, day out, it's pretty congested. We don't have any room to, there's barely room for a 2-door file cabinet in the hall there, so we would like to move our office over to that area as well. So while it does seem like 1,500 square feet is a ton of extra seating and a ton of extra cars, it's really not all that many. We're probably going to use about half of the space for storage and office. Penn is a super good landlord and called me one day, and the space has been empty twice since we've been there, and I have the first right of refusal on the property, and he called me the second time it was available. We've been there, December will be 3 years since we've had the property. And he called me one day and said, take this space, and he made me a super good deal. And without having to pay the $100 a month for the storage, it is almost worth us taking that space simply for storage and for office at what the rate he's asking for it. But we thought if we're going to do that, let's go ahead and take out this wall and put some larger tables for bigger groups in there. And with the parking next door with Dr. Burton, who's been very gracious enough to let us lease his, I think he's got 21 additional spaces over there, and he only has maybe 4 people, 4 cars at a time over there. I don't know if you've ever seen his parking lot, but it sits empty the majority of the time. It is adjacent. We have considered having our staff park in that area the entire time, but I think we've found through watching over the last 2 years, 2.5 years of us being open, that people pretty much don't want to park in the back. That's where the dumpster is, the back door of the kitchen is. Guests would rather park at Dr. Burton's and just walk across the grass or across the street, the little alley, whatever you call that street right there. It's nicer looking. And That's about all I have.
Can you get some bigger signs for the the U-Haul trucks so they don't park back behind the building?
U-Haul trucks that has been a point of contention since day one. We are nice enough to each other, but thank goodness for the city of Milton and Alpharetta and surrounding communities. We're successful, and it's a busy little place. And so the U-Haul people, Saturday is not a big day for us. Saturday night is huge. Saturday day, everybody's at North Park playing ball or watching football or doing whatever. So that's when the U-Haul place is their busiest. So we get along well enough. As a matter of fact, the U-Haul place is about to undergo different management or ownership. Gary and Carol over there, Gary had a stroke recently, and so he's going to be probably moving down to his property in Pine Mountain. And so we have some new people in there. We've introduced ourselves as friendly folks, and let's all get along, and they seem fine to it. We'll find out.
So as I understand it, you're landlocked on this property as far as adding additional parking spaces.
We've done everything we can as far as talk to Dr. Burton, and I think it would be a much more of an eyesore to have a parking lot where he's got that big green space next door. That's a pretty property. He's got a beautiful building back there. I think that would be kind of an eyesore to do it. Plus, it would be super expensive. Plus, we'd have to come see you guys, and I don't think that's something that the city would like to see. That's just my opinion. On the left side, as you're facing the building, was a private piece of property, which we went and looked at and actually spoke to the property owners about that. Penn and I went over and talked to them. Ended up selling it to you guys, the city, and apparently now they're going to do some fire station, fire department, police, annex. I'm not exactly sure what the plan is, but that's how that kind of came to be. So we kind of missed out on that too. But I'll tell you what, Penn is really up on trying to interconnect these parking lots. Not that that would necessarily give us any additional parking, but as far as freedom of traffic flow, similar to McDonald's on Windward Parkway connected with the Five Guys, it doesn't necessarily give McDonald's more space or Five Guys more space to park in their spaces, but they get ease of traffic flow. And so that is one thing that we're kind of hoping for, that there's going to be some connectivity down the road, especially when the new Bethany event or whatever they're going to name the high school, especially whenever that opens, because that's going to be another, well, that's one of the main reasons too, that we'd like to get this space open. So on Saturday night when the football team comes in, right now you got nowhere to put them. But if you have that space next door, maybe you've got a few more seats to house hopefully a winning football team. We'll see.
Who removed the original landscape trees that have to be replanted
There
now?
were crepe myrtles there, I think, when we first moved in, and I came in one day and every single one of them were gone. I know that Penn is a good guy and tries to make sure that his properties are visible from the road for his tenants. I'm not saying that he did it, but I am saying that I didn't.
Not me.
Just out of curiosity, if you did get this worked out with Dr. Burton, looks like you have, are you going to put some kind of signage to direct people to that location?
We would like to, yes.
Because I think, Clark Howard warns all of us never park off property, otherwise you'll get booted. So just to be sure that you've got that problem, I know in Roswell there's a couple of restaurants there where they kind of direct you to additional parking in other locations. So I don't know if you're not in a similar situation. So
we don't want to be in that situation.
Well, you are. You're directing people to other locations for parking. So
well, as far as booting, I mean, we don't want to.
Oh no. But what I'm saying is getting some signage up so people know where they can go park.
Any other questions for the applicant? As there's no public comment, is there any additional thing you would like to say?
I love you all.
Yes, sir.
To reinforce on one question that he asked, that the existing building parking is basically pushed right to the setbacks that are basically allowed. And even if there were any way to finagle even a few spaces in there to make an attempt, it would probably create a situation where the impervious area would just be so far beyond what's allowed that it's just completely infeasible. And also one other note that I think Walt mentioned was handicap parking. There is one existing van accessible handicap space that is basically directly in front of Mr. Doster's existing.
Yeah. Another one you may want to look at is also you've got those 3 spaces for the manicurist, or I'm trying to remember what it is across the street. But it doesn't have hours on there. If there was some way you could put hours where no parking between certain hours, that would help to make sure that people know they can use those spots. And,
They do use those spots. What they typically do is wait until they see that there's nobody in there.
Right.
And most of the customers, thank goodness, a lot of our customers anyway are repeat
Regulars.
offenders. So they come in there and they know that these guys are closed at 7 or whatever, and they'll park there. But that's a good idea.
So you could possibly finagle some diagonal parking with that 1-lane road by the where the cleaners are, but like you said, if it's an impervious issue, there's nothing much you could do unless you went with. That's the only place I could think of that you could.
We don't want to apply for a variance to reduce.
Hey, we're here.
All right, Walt.
Okay. Any questions to the staff from the board? At this time, we'd like to close the public hearing, and the floor is open for a motion. Let Nancy make a motion.
I don't remember what you said.
He'll help you.
Okay, I move that petition number V11017, request variance to reduce parking for a restaurant from 62 to 50 spaces, Article Section 64-1410.
Be approved.
To be approved.
Any conditions?
Page 5.
Okay, hold on. Based on conditions. I can get this. Okay, plant the 7 required landscape trees per the City of Milton tree ordinance requirements. Consult with city arborist. Variance. Okay, applicant shall maintain an agreement for overflow parking of 12 additional parking spaces.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. We've had a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just to make it crystal clear, I'd offer an amendment to specify that the 12 additional overflow parking spaces are on the adjacent property. Just to make that clear, I mean, we can have an agreement to have parking spaces at North Point Mall. That's not the intent of what we're saying here.
Yeah,
So I'd make
that's
the
true.
motion to amend the last condition stating additional parking spaces adjacent to subject property.
We have a motion to amend that the 12 additional parking spaces will be, what did you say that? Adjacent to the property.
I'll second for discussion.
Second for discussion. Any discussion?
Only reason I think that why it doesn't really matter, I mean, if they have to get parking across the street or they have to get parking 2 units down, we don't know what's going to develop in this area as time goes on. And my feeling is that I didn't want to handicap him for doing that. It may work out where if the city bought that property, they may work out a deal with the city for parking. So I didn't want to handcuff them. And when I was thinking about this, for saying it's adjacent, it could be across the street, it could be 4 units down. So I guess that's why I was concerned about the word adjacent. Maybe it's got to be, if you're saying within the vicinity. Most people comfortably can walk up to a quarter mile and not be considered inconvenienced. Anything over a quarter mile, then they start feeling that they're inconvenienced.
Well, across the street wouldn't be feasible, given that it's crossing Highway 9, so
They have a
I
party?
think that's out of play. You'd be jaywalking and that posing a significant public safety issue. I hear your point about adjacent, I think the adjacent doesn't mean directly next door. Adjacent could mean 2 or 3 doors down, that's still adjacent too. I think it gives them enough.
No. Adjacent is next door.
Well, and that was my intent, is next door, and if it's the city of Milton, that's next door. If it's this Dr. Burton, that's next door. So, we're talking 12 spaces.
Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second to have an agreement that the 12 additional spaces will be directly at the adjacent property. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed?
That's for the adjacent, that's for his.
3-2.
3-2. So it passed. Okay. So we have a motion and a second to approve petition B11-017 to reduce parking for a restaurant from 62 to 50 spaces with the following conditions. Number 1, plant the 7 required landscape trees per the City of Milton tree ordinance requirements. Consult with city arborists. And 2, will maintain an agreement for overflow parking for the 12 additional spaces, and those 12 additional spaces will be at the adjacent property. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. So we know it passed unanimously.
Good luck to you.
Good luck.
Hope you keep on doing well.
New business, is there any?
Good luck.
The only thing that I would like to say is that in the last 9 months, I've had 1 or 2 phone calls and I've had 1 or 2 people stop me after a meeting and tell me that our board is as efficient and is as quick as any board they've ever been on or been to present, and they certainly appreciate it and think that we do a wonderful job. I had actually 2 people stop me in August and tell me the exact same thing. So I would just like to say thank you to you all for.
Because of our
It has
chairperson.
nothing to do with me. We have no leadership.
Are you campaigning?
No, I'm not. No, I'm just telling
Are you driving a black bus? Do you have a black bus here?
I did, but somebody stole it. Somebody stole it. Okay. Any other new business? Counselor?
Are they,
What do we get fed, or at least paid?
No, I asked the mayor about that just the other day.
They have any party for us this
Well,
year?
listen to this. I go down here to the Verizon wireless thing.
Oh, did you get free tickets?
No, I did not. But I'm sitting there.
Let's adjourn.
Okay.
It's on the
I make a
record.
motion to adjourn.
I second. All in favor, raise your hand. Done. So I'm sitting down there and I'm talking to this guy, and he just got asked to be on the Board of Zoning Appeals for the city of Alpharetta. $100 a month